Let's talk about one of the most powerful and, when you think about it, strangest stories in human history, the miraculous birth. From ancient heroes to the founders of entire religions, this story pops up everywhere. But the real question is, why?
I mean, it's a genuine puzzle, right? Why this specific kind of story, recycled over and over again in so many different cultures and time periods? Is it all just a massive coincidence, or is there something much, much deeper going on? Well, we're about to unpack the sociology behind this whole phenomenon.
All right, let's get into it. Here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why this story is so persistent. Then, we'll explore its social function. After that, we'll break down the 4 main patterns it takes, see how these stories actually get the job done, apply all this to a really famous case study, and then zoom out for the big picture.
So first up, this isn't just an old story, it's one of the most widely recycled ideas we have in all of human history. These tales of extraordinary births are incredibly durable, and that durability, well, that's a huge clue to their importance.
Now, the easy explanation is to just say, well, people back then were just gullible, right? But that totally misses the point. The real reason these stories stick around, the reason they have such staying power, is that they do a very specific and very important job for the communities that tell them. They serve a crucial social function.
So what is that job? What's the function? Well, miraculous birth stories are all about one thing: establishing legitimacy. And they do it right at the point where any new leader or new movement is at its most fragile, the very, very beginning.
Think about it. Some new figure appears preaching a whole new message. The most natural question in the world for anyone listening is, okay, that's great, but why you? What makes you so special? This kind of story is the ultimate answer to that fundamental challenge.
And this leads us to this core concept, which we can call authority by origin. The story basically argues that this person's greatness isn't something they earned through skill or just got lucky with. Nope, it was their destiny from the moment they were conceived. Their authority is literally built into their DNA.
This quote from the source material just nails it. A miraculous birth takes the whole question of legitimacy out of our messy human hands. It's no longer a debate where we can argue about a leader's good points and bad points. Instead, it becomes a matter of cosmic, divine will. To question the leader is to question the universe itself.
Now, what's really fascinating is that this isn't just one type of story. When sociologists have looked at this, they've found 4 main categories that these narratives tend to fall into. It's a consistent pattern. So you've got the classic model, from Greco-Roman myths, where a god actually has a child with a mortal. Then you have divine conception without sex, maybe through a dream or a vision. You even have stories of conception after a father's death, like with Isis and Horus in Egypt. And finally, you have births that are biologically totally normal, but are surrounded by prophecies, stars aligning, and all sorts of cosmic signs.
You see the common thread here, right? It has nothing to do with biology or how babies are actually made. The point, the shared goal behind all these different versions, is that the community needs a powerful, foundational reason to believe that this one person is fundamentally different, that they were set apart from everyone else right from the start.
So how exactly are these stories so effective? What are the nuts and bolts here? Let's get into the mechanics of this narrative engineering that makes them such powerful tools for building authority. It works on so many levels. First, and this is absolutely key, it preempts any ordinary explanation. Before you can even ask, so what's this person's deal? The story answers, their origin is anything but ordinary. It also shields their authority from criticism. I mean, how can you argue with destiny? It gives a diverse group of followers one single sacred starting point to rally around. It boils down a really complex claim into a simple, memorable story that you can tell anyone, anywhere. It's the original viral content.
Okay, but this is a totally fair question. Couldn't different cultures just invent similar-sounding stories by chance? It's a common objection, but when you look a little closer, the pattern is just too strong to be a coincidence.
See, the real evidence isn't that the stories have a few similar details. It's that they consistently perform the exact same social job. Time and time again, across different cultures, this narrative gets rolled out to solve the exact same problem: how to establish unquestionable authority from day one. It's the function, not just the form, that proves the pattern.
All right, let's ground this theory in a very famous example to see exactly how this works in the real world. We're going to look at the Christian virgin birth and put it in its unique historical and cultural context.
So, you have to imagine the world the early Christian movement was born into. It was navigating this really tricky path between two very different cultures. In the Greco-Roman world, stories of gods like Zeus physically fathering heroes were totally normal, but in its own Jewish context, the idea of God having sex was theologically impossible. It just wouldn't fly. Purity was everything.
And this is where the virgin birth narrative is just an incredibly elegant solution. It solves the problem by adapting the familiar idea. It asserts a divine origin, which satisfies that need for a heroic birth story, but it does it without divine sex, which perfectly respects the strict monotheistic and purity rules of its Jewish roots. It's a masterful piece of cultural calibration.
Ultimately, what this story does is change Jesus' ontological status, which is a fancy term for his fundamental state of being. Without this story, a title like Son of God could just be a nice metaphor, right? An honor. But the virgin birth narrative argues that no, this is a literal reality. He isn't just like a son of God, he is the Son of God because of his very origin.
Okay, so let's zoom out for the final takeaway. What does all of this analysis really tell us about power, belief, and the stories we use to make sense of our world?
The key insight, the main thing to take away, is this. These stories are not just fun little footnotes or decorative details added to a leader's biography. They are the absolute foundation upon which the entire authority structure is built. They're a form of narrative engineering designed to tell a community, in the simplest terms possible, who is sacred and why.
And that leaves us with one last provocative question to think about. If this is how you build and secure authority at the start of a story, how do you protect it at the end? What kind of narrative could possibly be powerful enough to legitimize authority not just through birth, but in the face of death itself? Definitely something to chew on.